combination, the jab, the uppercut.
All right, let's go, because you know what I came in to do.
I don't get paid for overtime. I'm here to fight.
Everyone's talking about, oh, Tyson had a bad night. He hasn't fought in almost a year. Francis had not fought in almost 2 years. Stop making excuses. The reason why Tyson looked the way he looked was because of the opposition he was facing in Francis Ngannou.
Now, I agree with Dewey Cooper, Francis Ngannou's trainer's position. I agreed with it before an Anthony Joshua fight was made or announced. And I agree with him post-fight, the destruction that we saw on March the 8th. What's the truth? If Tyson Fury had took Francis Ngannou lightly, what would have happened? He would have got knocked out. That's what would have happened. I mean, by this logic and how he's talking about Alexander Usyk, he's going to take him lightly as well then. Because the way he's speaking about it, it's going to be a one-sided fight. And maybe it will. But then again, the Ngannou fight was supposed to be one-sided. What is it he doesn't take lightly? Will he take Anthony Joshua lightly? I mean, he's just a bodybuilder who comes forward, workmanlike, as he was saying today in the Box Nation interview. So who doesn't he take lightly? Or who does he take serious? It's bullshit. Fury tried to sell us that he was an all-time great because he beat Deontay Wilder a couple of times, saying that everyone else will be knocked out by Deontay Wilder except him. Come on now. Carl Froch believes that AJ's performance against Ngannou has exposed Tyson Fury's decline. He's saying it must have either been a really bad night for Fury or he's in decline. Froch says Fury is past his best. He's seen better days. I study the sport and I study the fights. And Tyson Fury used to throw 30 plus feints around. Feint, draw his opponent in, feint, double jab right hand. He's not doing the feints anymore. He's doing 4 or 5 feints. He's slow on his feet. He's been knocked down 5 times in recent years. When you're hitting the floor and getting hit on the chin and not throwing feints and not as busy as you used to be, that means you're past your best and you're on the decline and you're on the slide. Now, I don't often quote Carl Froch because sometimes he talks a load of crap. But admirers and fans of fighters are the last to see, not the last, maybe the fighter was the last to see the decline. But they stay in denial. Just like when Ali was popping them thyroid pills. He even fooled Angelo Dundee that he could beat Larry Holmes. Ali was looking slim, shoulders looking big and wide, as Angelo described it. Looked like the prime Ali. Holmes nearly killed him in there. No one who knows boxing would expect Tyson Fury to knock out Ngannou like Anthony Joshua did. Joshua is a more explosive, offensive fighter than Fury. But Fury should have shut him out. If it's going to go the distance, it should have been 12-0. We shouldn't have heard split decision. He shouldn't have been on the canvas. He shouldn't be biting on Ngannou's feints. I've got Usyk the favourite, and I'm not changing my pick. It won't be an easy fight for Usyk, but I've got him the favourite. Fury has to hope that Usyk himself is in decline.
Alexander Usyk, Tyson, are you confident next year you two will have an undisputed title bout?
I don't give a shit about Alexander Usyk. He's a little foreigner nobody cares about.
So on top of calling Alexander Usyk a foreigner a year or maybe 2 years back now.
Say no more. I look at Usyk, he's a stiff white man who moves his head a little bit and moves his feet. That's how I look at him. I've never met a stiff white man who could ever outbox me, ever in my life. Amateur, pro, sparring, anything. Ever.
So he's basically saying Usyk is a stiff white man. I don't think Usyk is stiff. He's not stiff. He's definitely Eastern European, but he's learnt or studied different styles, and it's not just American styles. He was definitely influenced by Prince Nassim Hamed. He said so. He used to copy all his moves in his amateur days. Yes, Usyk does keep it fundamentally simple. Doesn't do a Philly shell or shoulder roll or anything like that. So he's the first person I've heard describe Usyk as stiff. In what way is he stiff? He spoke about Usyk's opposition at heavyweight, Chaz Witherspoon, Derek, Joshua, and Dubois. How they come forward looking for a big punch, workmanlike, no real skills. Who's he fought who's as skilled as Anthony Joshua? Stiff or not stiff? Joshua stopped 5 common opponents. 5 common opponents, and Fury stopped one of them. Deontay Wilder, let's say he's not stiff, he's unorthodox, makes it up as he's going along. But he just looks for the one right hand. And Joseph Parker capitalised on that, didn't he? What about Otto Wallin? Stiff European. gave Fury issues. John McDermott. Pricey knocked McDermott out in a round. Go watch the Fury-McDermott fight for yourself, the first one. And whether you think Tyson won or not, he struggled against a British journeyman. Didn't give Vlad his rematch. Pajkic, small heavyweight. Another European. I wonder if he was stiff. He put him on the floor as well. So all this xenophobic, stiff European, I've got the American style. Well, the Americans are not currently having success in the heavyweight division. That's not me hating. It's me telling the truth. May the 18th will answer a lot of questions, but it will not answer all the questions. Because yes, Fury could win that fight. He still hasn't fought Anthony Joshua. And he could use a Usyk victory as an exit not to take that fight. I think he'd have to retire after that though, if AJ's still winning. And to be honest, I couldn't really be mad at him. You know what I'm saying? I couldn't be mad at him if he did that. So, yeah, unless it ends prematurely because of that right eye with Fury cutting sparring, we're going to find out if Usyk is a stiff. We're going to find out how he does against the sixth common opponent between him and Anthony Joshua, who beat Joshua twice. He decisively beat Klitschko, but I heard that Usyk, in sparring, embarrassed Vladimir. They're both unbeaten. They both have a lot of good accomplishments. Both their reputations be on the line. Fury's going to have to back up all what he's saying. He's the bigger man. He's been telling us how great he is. He's going to have to back up all what he's saying.
How is it dealing with His Excellency, Tyson?
Listen, I don't class His Excellency as a bank check. I class him as a close friend. Do you know what I mean? Like, I hope that he could come to me and tell me something. And I hope that I could come to him and tell him something. Do you know what I mean? Like, don't forget, all these boxing is out here because of me. And that's a fact. Like, when I brought Turki Al-Sheikh to boxing, there was no... he wasn't involved in boxing at that time. And then when he did the deal with me, it opened all this up. So, like, all these boxers and things, yeah, they're out here because of me, because I started all this off.
Now, I know Fury took part in some wrestling event in the Middle East. Could have been Saudi Arabia, I ain't got a clue. But pardon me, hasn't he just had the Francis Ngannou fight in Saudi Arabia? Anthony Joshua started the huge purses, the big nights in Saudi Arabia. I'm not saying they didn't have fights before AJ fought over there. But Joshua against Ruiz, December 2019. So how did Tyson Fury start it? Joshua's fought there 4 times. Now, fair enough, Fury is the first to have a big fight with Turki Al-Sheikh and his corporation, yes. But as to say you pioneered all what's happening out in Saudi Arabia is a big lie. Joshua versus Ruiz, the first fight, Jeddah. Huge event, huge purses. And then, didn't Eddie get that record site fee for the undisputed fight between Joshua and Fury, only for them to pull out? Work was put in before Tyson Fury playing Ngannou. A lot of work by AJ and Eddie Hearn. They should be thanking him. No, you should be thanking Anthony Joshua. Whether it's stadium fights in the UK or big nights in Saudi Arabia.
Even leading up into that fight there, not to say the result would be different, but it wasn't my day. Like, at any moment of the day that I feel like, okay, we are good here to go, you know. I remember being even in the locker, trying to warm up, and then, bro, it wasn't going. I was feeling asleep. I told Eric, like, bro, something like, I'm feeling asleep. I'm sweating, but I'm feeling asleep.
Francis said he was feeling asleep. Obviously meant he was falling asleep, and in the ring he got put to sleep. A lot of people were calling for a Deontay Wilder bout. In this social media post, he said he's open for that fight. But he also wants to do PFL as well. Can't straddle the both disciplines. You can't do that. Either dedicate to boxing or go back to doing what you were doing. I mean, he should have learned from Saturday, you know what I mean? Like, maybe he believes he was drugged or something went wrong beyond his control. It wasn't down to Anthony Joshua's fist. Maybe that's what he believes. With Francis, his issues are, if you're making $20 million purses, although his next fight, he won't be getting that. But it's probably tempting to weigh up the risk reward and say, yo, I'm going to go again because of the money he's going to be earning. Another issue Francis has about walking away from boxing and going back to MMA is the fight with Tyson Fury. He's convinced he won, and he's still holding on to that despite what happened against Anthony Joshua. But here's the thing. If you go in there with Wilder, people can say what they want about Wilder's fundamentals and technique, or his application to the sport today, or his inactivity. But he is an Olympic bronze medalist, a former WBC world heavyweight champion, has a very high knockout percentage, and has knocked out some decent fighters, although he doesn't have the best resume. And Francis said he's open to the fight, and there's a lot of fans saying, yeah, they want to see Francis versus Wilder. Is that because you think Wilder has deteriorated that badly after the Joseph Parker fight? Joseph Parker is a former WBO champion who's beat Wilder and Zhang in consecutive fights. Wilder will likely knock Francis out really badly. After 2 losing efforts, no matter how controversial the first one was, it's time for Francis to restart at a more realistic level. I don't know what that is off the top of the head. What's the point going straight into a Wilder fight off the back of that AJ performance? Why is it people want to see that? He just got knocked out cold. And now you want to see him in there with Wilder. Strange. Joseph Parker has a resume, man. Got a resume. Fought Andy Ruiz, won, lost to AJ, lost to Dillian, close one on the cards. Beat Derek Chisora twice, once controversially, former WBO champion. And what people have to bear in mind, he was in the Fury camp. Yeah, Fury's beat Wilder twice in 3 fights, 1 draw. But he was in the Fury camp. He's worked around Andy Lee, who was an integral part of the team that got Tyson ready for the Wilder fights. Do you know how much insights he had on Deontay Wilder?
I saw someone where Spencer Brown said, I'm going to tell you a secret now, Tyson didn't sleep for 3 days before. You never do that. Boxers don't do that. They're like crybabies.
Fury couldn't sleep, and that's why he performed badly against Ngannou. Ngannou was falling asleep, and that's why he performed bad against AJ. Johnny Nelson's questioning Spencer Brown's motives. Well, you're looking at a camp that is trying to put out a united front right now. Anthony Joshua, last 2 performances against common opponents. If that hasn't dented Tyson Fury's confidence, his coach's confidence, the camp's confidence, then Tyson Fury is bulletproof. Because Spencer Brown didn't come out and say that until after he saw what Anthony Joshua did to Ngannou. Fury and his team are doing a whole load of talking. Usyk staying quiet, not a word, not a peep. Mauricio Sulaiman, the WBC, I'm guessing is being put under pressure for giving Ngannou that number 10 ranking. He justifies the decision, saying that he looks at all combat fighters' activity. Now he's talking about all combat fighters outside boxing who transition into boxing. He looks at their activity. Well, what is he talking about? Ngannou's had 2 fights in boxing, and he's been relatively inactive before that in MMA, hasn't he? He had the knee surgery. I don't know when he last fought in MMA. He then says he doesn't see what the issue is because the WBC rank more Thai fighters quite often. Now, he's talking about a dynamic that occurs in the lower weights, where perhaps boxers from Thailand, for instance, will go wherever the check is. So if there's a more Thai fight for them, they'll take it. If there's a boxing fight, they'll take it. And the ones who transition successfully are the ones he say will get ranked. But he's being a bit dishonest. We all know why he made that decision. He ranked Ngannou after 1 pro boxing fight because of the size of the event and the notoriety of his opponent, the WBC heavyweight champion. That's why he did that. Now, there may be all types of politics why the more Thai fighters are getting ranked. I'm sure most of them who got ranked had more than 1 professional boxing fight. Pull up the receipts of how many got ranked when their first fight was a losing fight, controversial or not. Another point he used to try and justify the decision was, well, look, Anthony Joshua took a fight with him, didn't he? Yeah, because you ranked him at number 10, I guess. That assisted Eddie Hearn and Joshua's justification in taking the fight, and that he gave Fury all types of issues. He then said he has no issues if the winner of Fury and Usyk fight AJ next. And although he's not outlining AJ as the official mandatory, he says as long as there's no promotional or contractual roadblocks, he would accept AJ as the next official challenger. Frank Warren wants to keep Anthony Yarde versus BUATSI in London. Doesn't want it to go out to Saudi. Yeah, you've got to keep some of the domestic fights in the UK. Fraser Clark versus Wardley, that's in the UK. Jack Catterall versus Josh Taylor. The bigger question to Frank and Ben Shalom is what's happened to the negotiations with that fight? It's all right saying keep it in London. Is the fight happening? What stage are we at with negotiations? The issue Frank Warren may have, though, is the likes of Yarde and BUATSI are going to want as much money as possible. So while Frank is thinking about keeping the punters happy in the UK, BUATSI and Yarde will not have such concerns. They're not promoters, they're fighters. They have short careers compared to a promoter. So the problem Warren might have is if the Saudis or somewhere in the Middle East there's a huge bid for that fight, what does he do? Not what does he do, what can he do? Make no mistake, if that fight does take place in the UK, Frank Warren or Ben Shalom will be trying to put that on pay-per-view. That's what they're going to do. Because like I'm saying, BUATSI and Yarde are going to be looking for as much as they can get. And the only way to do that perhaps might be to put it on pay-per-view in the UK. Now, unless you want to go live and see it in London, it's probably a better deal if it goes Saudi Arabia, if you've got Sky or BT. But if it goes to Saudi, if it is a main event, they'll have more money to spend on the undercard. So the Saudis are leaving a bit of a dilemma on what we do with domestic boxing on domestic shores. I would say it's a nice problem to have, especially for the fighters.